Hello. If you've ever wanted to play a Bruiser that is a close range fighter, but also an Earthbender in open world, this is the build for you. I've been playing Guild Wars 2 for a little bit of under a year now. I really enjoy doing build crafting, theory crafting, and with the new VOE expansion, it's an awesome time to try new builds where it's like there's not really a meta yet, especially for open world builds that you are being pushed into. So lots of new things to try and hopefully come up with some new and exciting fun builds to play. I also want to give credit to this Reddit post because I've been trying to come up with this Earth build for quite some time now, and when I was browsing this one in particular, the discussions and different opinions have given me a few ideas that I was wanting to try, and some of them have really helped put this together. Check out the link in the description if you're interested. I also want to say I'm not the sweatiest gamer. I haven't done the hardest content in this game, but this is the only build that I have tried and made that has been able to solo Mushroom Queen. So as a beginner, this build packs a ton of CC, has really good damage and bleed damage, permanent alacrity, and improved protection. And with the right relic, we can get permanent fury and some might to boost our damage. Okay, let's talk about gear. For gear, this build can be very cheap to make. I therefore have everything exotic. There is no ascended version in this. If you have ascended gear, it will just mean that you will do a lot more damage, you'll have a lot more sustain, a lot more toughness, everything will just be better. You have a level 80 booster, possibly from the new expansion purchase. This can be very easy for you because I run full exotic celestial gear. So on my armor, it's full celestial. My trinkets are also full celestial. And you will see that the rune that I have is the superior rune of the elementalists, which is the ones that you get from using the level 80 booster on an elementalist. So I haven't really taken the time or resource to change the runes. They have worked quite well for me. This build is able to do hybrid damage of both power and condi. It is a heavy bleed oriented build, but it does have some hard hitting strike damage abilities as well. But if you wanted to, and if you have the money, Superior Runes of a Trapper would probably be my go-to option here to really boost your damage. For weapons, I run Dagger. You can see I've got the Bearkin Claws on, which I really like as a skin transmuted. It just they just really fit the vibe that I'm going for, right? Like a bruiser fighter that has to fight close range and in your face and tanky. In terms of stats, you'll see that my ones are Vipers, and that's only because I'm an idiot who thought that running or crafting Viper daggers would be a lot cheaper than crafting Celestial daggers because the time gated items were charge crystals. I thought because of that, this time gated it must be more expensive to make, but I already have like 20 of them charge crystals, so I still went ahead and crafted this dagger, but you can definitely just run celestial daggers and it will be just the same, if not better, because you get all of the extra benefits from running celestial. In terms of sigils, I run very cheap ones. It's Superior Sigil of Earth, which inflicts bleeding every time we crit a foe, as well as the Superior Sigil of Agony for increased bleed duration. which will just increase our damage. So at the moment, I am on 75% bleed duration. I think if you were running Rune of a Trapper, you could probably boost that up to 95%, which would be quite nice. The next thing I wanted to spend some time to talk about is the Relic. So for Relics, you have a lot of different options. I am currently going with Relic of the Midnight King. I think it's a really nice option that synergizes really well with what the build wants to do. And this build has like 0 might generation. So having the Relic of a Midnight King is the only source of regular might generation that you can get, which is really helpful to just boost your damage. The option that I was running before was just the default Relic of the Water that you get from the level 80 booster. It gives you Condi Cleanse every time you use a healing skill. I guess it's good for survival if you're in Condi heavy fights, but again, this build is really tanky and has a lot of sustain. I don't think I really needed to run this Relic of the Water. And if I was in a very Condi heavy fight, I can run or swap out one of my utilities to have Condi cleanses. If you don't have anything else, this is fine. But yeah, I prefer Relic of the Midnight King for the increase to damage. Another option which could go really crazy is Relic of the Biomancer. So this is a new VOE expansion relic. You heal yourself whenever you inflict bleeding or poison on a foe, which you do a lot of in this build, right? The Dagger 1 inflicts bleeding, Dagger 2 inflicts bleeding, Dagger 3 inflicts bleeding as well because of your traits, Dagger 5 inflicts bleeding, you got Signet of Earth that inflicts bleeding, Glyph of Elements, so if I use it, you'll see that the Stomp also inflicts bleeding. And we'll cover in the traits why. I again didn't feel like I needed more sustain, even in really hard fights. So I have opted for the more aggressive option with Relic of the Midnight King. But if you think that you want to be a bit unkillable, this I think would be the go-to option. The third option that I would consider is Relic of a Pirate Queen. I don't have it yet. The Relic of a Pirate Queen pretty much gives you quickness every time you disable an enemy, which will be every time we are doing our F5, which means we almost would have permanent quickness. It could be insane on this build, right? Because you get alacrity already. So having like perma quickness on top of that just means that you would be hitting so much faster. And all of your dagger skills have a bit of a animation before they do their actual damage, right? Like you, a lot of the times kind of like go up and then come back down. So it can be quite windy animations, and the fact that you can maybe make that a lot faster means you are doing a lot more damage and casting your F5 more often. I don't know if I will go for it just because right now it just fits the theme, right? Like having some guy who's super tanky but a little bit slow with the animation. Like it's like big wind-ups, big strong hits, but big wind-ups thematically makes more sense to me. So I like the way it is right now because of the fantasy of a Bruiser. If you had something that now is like super quick, cannot be killed, um, can do everything, it's too much, right? Like, and maybe a longer conversation of should we have all boons on every character type conversation. So yeah, anyway, if you have tried it, let me know how that goes. I think it would be a very strong relic nevertheless. The Next thing we want to talk about is the traits. So for traits, I go Earth, Air, and Evoker. So in Earth, you get a lot of tankiness and damage and the most synergy because we are running the Earth specialization. So Stone Flesh gives you strike damage reduction, which is nice, makes you more tanky. The next one we take is Serrated Stones. Your bleed duration is increased by 20%, and on top of that, you deal increased damage to bleeding foes, which will always be the case whenever you're fighting an opponent. You will always be inflicting bleeding, so this is a very nice damage increase. Earth and Blast, we don't get any benefits from this. Strength of Stone, you get condition damage based on your toughness. We are running Celestial, so we get quite a bit of toughness, which makes us tanky. But being tanky also means that we get condition damage. So this is awesome. Nice damage increase. Inflict bleeding when you immobilize a foe is the second sort of passive that you get from Strength of Stone, which is great because, like I was saying before, now you have Dagger Free, which inflicts bleeding because it doesn't immobilize, and your Elite, your Earth Elemental, also inflicts immobilize. The next one is Geomancer's Training. Strike damage from nearby foes is reduced. More tankiness, which makes us really good at fighting up close. And your earth weapon skills gain reduced recharge, which is really important for us because on top of having alacrity, it just means that we're able to constantly do 2 weapon skills into an F5, 2 weapon skills into an F5. I feel like every Evoker build that is doing specialized elements, even the fire version, sort of runs the same concept of you need to just be able to spam your abilities so that you can get the most amount of F5 triggers. Written in Stone is the last one we take in Earth. Signets, continue to grant their passive bonuses while recharging, and you get an aura when you use a Signet skill. So I run 3 out of 5 of my utility slots are actually Signets because of that. They're just really strong, and I almost feel like I, I don't find myself swapping out the 3 Signets that I run because they're so good. Signet of Restoration is crazy sustain. Signet of Fire gives you more crit chance. Signet of Earth gives you more toughness, which makes you tankier, but also inflicts a lot of bleed. So yeah, they're all very great. The next one I run is Air, and I think it gives us some really cool expected benefits. So Zephyr Speed gives us crit chance increase, which is very beneficial because every time we now crit, it just means that our strike damage is better, but we also will inflict bleeding because of the Sigil of Earth. Then I run Zephyr's Boon, which grants boons to allies every time you grant an aura. So every time you're using a signet, you get an aura, and on top of that, you also now get Fury and Swiftness. So in Electric Discharge, we don't get anything from that. The next one I run is Raging Storm. So critically striking a foe grants Fury, which we will do quite a bit. But with this, and the fact that whenever you're using your signets, you get Fury, and the fact that whenever you disable an enemy, you get Fury from Relic of the Midnight King, with all of these different sources, you're almost upkeeping permanent Fury on yourself, which is great. And you get Ferocity while you're under the effects of Fury. So your crit damage hits for a lot harder, which is nice. Stormsaw is one that I think could work, but I just haven't really gone for it because it only increases your strike damage whenever you disable a foe. So I don't know, I just preferred the idea of Raging Storm and having Permanent Fury. It just felt like all of the benefits you get from Permanent Fury and the increased ferocity outweighed the damage increase. It's 10% the strike damage increase, but I could be wrong. I haven't really gone and tested it, but Raging Storm, I've run it. I've done some hard content with it. It's working great for me. The next one, Aeromancer's Training, you gain ferocity, so your crit damage hurts even more, which is great. And the last one, which is probably my favorite one in air, is Lightning Rod. Cast Lightning Rod when you disable a foe. I think this ability is just so fun. So even if there was potentially a better one in this, right, like Bolt to the Heart, if maybe that was better, I'd still run Lightning Rod because the visual effect of seeing lightning just come down and strike your opponent every time you're using your F5 is just so awesome. It feels like you're hitting harder than you should be because of the visual effects, and it just makes the fights more entertaining. It makes hitting F5 even more satisfying, and you see it whenever you're hitting Earthquake as well, which is great. I really like this, and it's a nice damage increase as well. I think I sometimes hit for like 1200 every time on top, just from Lightning Rod. The next one in Evoker, we run Spirit's a Call, which is great sustain. So every time you're using your familiar skill, you get sustain. This is a very aggressive playstyle, right? A lot of your sustain comes from using your abilities and casting your skills. So you want to be fighting, you want to be as close as possible so that when you are fighting, you're not just pressing your abilities, but you're also doing damage. So between Spiritual and Signet of Restoration passive, you get quite a bit of healing from using your abilities. Enhanced Potency is another reason why this build is so tanky and so good at sustaining itself. It's because now Protection also gives you minus 33% incoming condition damage reduction. You get Protection every time you cast F5. You get Protection every time you use Armor of Earth, but you also get Barrier every time you're casting F5 and Barrier whenever you're using Armor of Earth, and you're getting heals whenever you're using Spirits of Core and Signet of Restoration. So you just get so much healing, so much barrier, so much damage reduction, and the damage reduction from Earth passives. It just means that you can just stay in fights for so long and keep fighting. That's why I love how Bruiser it feels. The next one is Familiar's Blessing, which gives us alacrity every time we use a familiar skill. This is great for us to be able to keep using abilities and keep staying in the fight so that you're healing, casting abilities, doing CCs. That's great. Gain a temporary bonus after using a familiar skill. So yeah, again, just minus 15% incoming damage reduction. We'll take it. The last one is specialized elements. So we are locking ourselves into Earth so that we get the basic skill recharge and empowered skill recharge reduction. So it just charges more quickly. So now you need 2 weapon skills to charge your familiar. We now go into the rotation. It's probably the easiest rotation to keep in mind. You don't really have like specific things that you have to follow, right? There's only one pattern that you need to know is 2 weapon skills into an F5 because that's how you charge. So if we were to do an example of how that works, 2 weapon skills, 1, 2, and that charges your F5, so you can now cast F5. And you just want to keep doing that. I don't really have an order of which I cast my weapon skills. I just do maybe I think I just do 2, 3, F5, 4, 5, F5. There's no, like, you can do whatever order works best for you, right? Like, the other thing that I will maybe mention is, this guy's running away from me. Okay. The other thing that I will mention is your F5 is an instant cast. So it can be sometimes quite like hard when you're fighting. You know, you're in the middle of a fight. You're like pressing all your abilities. You're like queuing up 3 skills in a row instead of doing 2 and pressing F5. Because your dagger skills have such a long wind up. So for example, watch me cast skill 5 right now. You can use your F5 in the middle of that animation, as you saw me do just before. So it's really helpful because if you are, I'm just gonna redo this, but let's say you are using 2 weapon skills right now, and so therefore your F5 is charged, and you didn't really use your F5, but you've already pressed a 3rd weapon skill, you can quickly, as you're casting your weapon skill, use your F5 so that you get the trigger of your F5, but at the same time, now you only need to use 1 more weapon skill and your F5 will be charged again. So it will still count as 2 abilities used to charge your F5, even though you've used your 3rd ability. I hope that makes sense. It's just there's a little bit of room for error where you can use your abilities even if you haven't quite min-maxed the fact that you technically should be doing 2 weapon skills into F5, 2 weapon skills into F5. But yeah, I thought it was a nice little neat thing that this was instant cast. It's really cool. The other thing that I really like is Dagger 3 has a built-in evade, which I did not know the first time I was sort of running around with this build. It's just really cool that the duration of a skill, a half second, you also get evade for half second, which means that if you time it right, you should be able to dodge quite a number of mechanics or damage that's coming towards you, and it just feels really nice whenever you do make it happen. In terms of utilities, like I said before, you want to run a number of signets because you get so many passives and actives and buffs from running signets. So I do signet of restoration, signet of fire, signet of earth, and the flexible slot, which really hasn't been so flexible for me because I still think this is probably the best option. I run Armor of Earth, which gives you so much protection and barrier because it gives you barrier per boon, so 704 barrier per boon, and you usually will have like, if you press Signet, you will get 2 boons, and if you press this, you get Alacrity, and then if you press this, now you have 3.5k barrier, you know? And protection and stability, which just means that I like to use it when I know I'm about to get CC'd like crazy, but I just pop Armor of Earth, get barrier, get protection, get stability, and just keep hitting them. It's awesome. Then the last one is I just run Earth Elemental because there's not really anything else to run that's as good. It gives you like an additional thing for monsters to focus on, which helps with tanking, but also just the added benefit of the Stomp does protection, but also does bleed. So I just like it because it's another source of damage that you can inflict on the enemy, but also give yourself sustain in the form of protection. So that's for the skills. Quite fits the vibe too, no? Like, You're an Earth Mage, Earth Elemental, makes sense. You got your Toad. That's just quite cool. Very nice.